Hello and welcome to DriveCore. I'm Nathan, and as you can tell by the title of this video, I bought myself my first ever flip project, which just happens to be a 2013 Hyundai Veloster Turbo. I bought this vehicle for a steal at $2,700 Canadian, and that's not just because it's a Hyundai and it's probably going to blow up at some point, but because it needs a lot of mechanical things sorted out, and not to mention that there's some other little details here or there that could be sorted out as well. Now, some other reasons why I got this vehicle so cheap besides the mechanical problems are actually having to do here with the exterior. Now, looking at the back here where the gas cap is, you can tell there is a dent and also some paint chip right there. So I will have to address that, and actually just going to use a dent puller and some touch-up paint, and then it should look like new. Now, the other thing is, when I was driving this thing home, I noticed that the brakes were aggressively wobbly, so that was really scary. I mean, the previous owner had told me that they replaced the front brake pads and rotors. I'm like, even upon inspection, they look kind of rusted. So I think this vehicle had been sitting for a while, and that the rotors had gotten a bit rusted, almost to the point again where they need to be replaced. So that's something else I'm gonna have to address on this vehicle, at least mechanically. Now, the main issue with this vehicle mechanically is actually the clutch. Now, this kind of seems like deja vu. I bought a 2003 Toyota RAV4 about 2 years ago around this time, and that also needed to have a clutch replaced. So this is actually day 2 now of removing the transmission out of this RAV4. And it goes! So I'm actually in the exact same location with a different vehicle, and now I'm gonna have to replace the clutch once again. But I think this one will be a bit more smooth because this is also just a front wheel drive vehicle and a not all wheel drive, not have to worry about a drive shaft, and that the transmission is quite a bit smaller. So I'm praying that it will go a bit easier this time around and I won't encounter a lot of problems. Another thing that the previous owner mentioned to me is the fact that this panoramic sunroof doesn't quite work. So I'm gonna have to get that sorted as well. Now, in my additional findings just when test driving the vehicle, which I would never recommend doing it the way I did it, and that was just in the driveway, because unfortunately this vehicle didn't have any license plates, nothing, so I couldn't even take it on the road. So I just went up and down the driveway a couple times just to see how the transmission was and everything else. So while doing that, I noticed that the backup camera didn't come on the screen there, and I'm gonna have to look into that a little bit as well. With this vehicle being my first ever flip project, it's gonna be quite the challenge to fix all these things, not to mention also earn a profit, because this vehicle has now 250,000 kilometers on it, which is a bit high for a 2013. So I have so far invested $2,700 into the vehicle itself, and then I'm gonna imagine spending about $2 grand worth of parts, and that includes the windshield replacement as well. Not to mention that there's gonna be a lot of time involved in fixing these small items. So as I go along, I'll be making sure to keep track of everything that I do. That includes parts and time I put towards fixing this thing, and also sharing that with you as well, just so that way you know how much it really costs to flip a vehicle, especially while needing this much work. And hopefully at the end, I can actually make all my money back and a little bit more. And rather than making you wait for another video, I'm actually gonna start the process here on replacing the clutch in this vehicle, which shouldn't be, again, hopefully too hard to do. But I'm not going to do a full-on tutorial of how to replace the clutch on this vehicle, as there's lots of videos out there, but I'm going to do it quickly, so that way you can at least get an idea of how much work is actually involved in this process. Say what you will about Hyundai, but I think they did a pretty good job of making this engine bay pretty easy to disassemble, especially getting here to the transmission. That part especially has been quite easy so far. Again, not a lot to complain about, despite the fact that this is a newer vehicle especially. This has been quite easy to do. So the next part is going to be jacking up the vehicle, removing the wheels, and then also removing the axles in the front there, and then that way I can get the transmission out. This is going to be the most weird thing I've ever seen on an aftermarket rim, is one of these like little Allen keys here that you would have to remove in order to get these wheels off. Now, I have no idea who thought this was a good idea, but this is crazy. Let's say if you got a flat tire and you didn't have an Allen key, you're pretty much hooped. came back from the store and I just bought these glasses here because I left my other ones at home. And these safety glasses have like these little magnifier things down here at the bottom of the lens. And boy, it's trippy. Like I feel like I'm on another planet when I look down there. It's really distracting. So I learned my lesson, never to buy these ones again. So I just tried to remove the under tray. I didn't think I'd have a problem in the vehicle, only about 10 years old. And that is removing some bolts because these ones unfortunately had just snapped. And I was quite surprised because again, it doesn't show any signs of rust, but yeah, they snapped right off. Wow, these brakes are extremely nasty looking. I mean, this is all surface rust, but the routers themselves on either side, there's a lot of grit there. And that's probably what exactly was happening was when I was driving, it just all that surface rust just accumulated, just making the brakes shake horribly. So anyways, that's another thing for another day. But today, again, still working on the clutch here removal part. I'm going to just remove the wheel assembly from the strut. So I've applied a little bit of penetrant. And in the meantime, I'm going to actually drain the transmission oil. It's the next day, and if you couldn't tell by at least in the beginning of this video that I do have a little bit of a cold, so that's why I sound a little bit off, so I do apologize. But anyways, back to the vehicle. So I have finished removing pretty much all the components except for the transmission. So yes, the CV axles, those are gone. The brakes are disconnected. Everything is pretty much disconnected here, especially here in the engine bay. Everything is disconnected. So all this stuff is now separated from the transmission, and now all I have to do is just basically get a jack and lift the engine just to support it anyways, and then now I can take all the bolts out because I do have to remove the transmission mount here, and then there's an engine mount over there. So I have to disconnect those, but I have to get some more set up here to hold the transmission in place. Now I guys want to make it perfectly clear that I could not fit the transmission jack with the adapter in here, so it doesn't quite work out, at least pulling it out from the side. But if you are uncomfortable doing something like this at home, I would highly suggest getting someone to help you. But again, I'm not concerned because this is a bit of a lighter transmission. But again, hopefully I don't die. Got it. We got it. And that's what it looks like on the inside. Now I'm going to clean up this inside here. And then actually my new clutch kit came with one of these new throw-up bearings. So I'm going to replace that as well. So this is what the original 250,000 kilometer clutch looks like that Hyundai put it in from factory. And I have to say, I am quite surprised because this is held up for so long. But, you know, it could have probably made it a little bit longer. But as I'm seeing here on the rivets, they are starting to poke through just a little bit. You can see there. Yeah, it definitely needs to be replaced. But again, very surprised that it's lasted even this long. All right, I'm pretty much finished almost with everything else. I'm going to remove this flywheel, which is actually a dual mass flywheel. And I didn't know that until afterwards because I didn't realize you can't get these resurfaced. You actually just have to replace them because there's a bunch of springs inside there. So basically, you cannot reuse this, which sucks. If you saw my RAV4 video, you know that I use this trick here to hold the flywheel in place. That way I can actually undo the bolts, and then when I go to torque it back on later, it'll be easier to torque them as well. So that way it just kind of locks it in place. And this one in particular, these bolts are torqued, which is actually quite a surprise that they decided to do that. I've not seen any of the torques on this vehicle besides here, so that will be the first encounter. Just to give you guys a comparison of the dual mass flywheels, this is the original one at 250,000 kilometers on the car, and here is the new one, which is ironically made in Korea. And just to kind of one thing to look out for with these dual mass flywheels, is what I've been told, is that over time, as they get old, they tend to move around a lot more. They get a lot of flexibility because their springs inside give out. Now, surprisingly, this one is in still really good shape. I probably could reuse it, but because I want this vehicle to be in perfect shape to give it to the new owner, I'm going to use this new one here instead. One thing I'm surprised is that this rear main seal is not leaking after 250,000 kilometers, which is quite amazing. But again, I'm going to replace it because I don't want the future owner to have to worry about that problem. Welcome to the third day in this video, and I've reinstalled the transmission and I got pretty much all the engine reassembled here. Now, all I have left to do is get the new brake pads and rotors on, and then this thing should be ready for the road. The new brake rudders and pads are installed on either side of the vehicle. Now it's time to just put the wheels on and take this thing for a test drive. Okay, everything's all buttoned up, meaning that the wheels are on, torqued. The battery here is connected. I still actually have power, which is nice. So now I'm going to start it up and see how it runs. All right, I got my smart key here. I'm going to use that, and I'm just going to press the clutch in. Just a little start button down here. Okay, sounds pretty good so far. I'm going to check the leaks down here, especially because of the clutch fluid I had replaced, and also the transmission fluid as well. Just check that out as well. All right, I haven't seen any leaks yet, so that's good. And now I'm going to take it just for a little test drive up and down this long driveway here and just see how it feels. That's just the seat belt, that's okay. Now that I'm actually out driving on an actual road with this thing, man, it feels really good. That clutch feels so much better. The pedal will actually come back to me now, whereas before when I was driving this thing, the clutch pedal that is, wouldn't even come back. So I actually had to pull it back out with my foot. So that was kind of scary at times, but that feels good. The brakes feel better. Unfortunately though, I am going to have to replace the rear brake pads and rotors as well. I was actually hoping to save a little bit of money there, but there is still that vibration occurring when applying the brakes. It's not as aggressive as it was before, but nonetheless, I do need to replace those as well. So far in this video, I've covered what's wrong with this vehicle, and also the clutch replacement and the brake pads and rotors replacement up at the front. The next video there, I will continue onwards, just sorting out the rest of the smaller stuff in this vehicle. That is going to be the rear brake pads and rotors, which shouldn't take very long at all, and then also get into pulling out that nasty dent in the rear by the gas cap, and then also getting into some detailing and polishing. And then hopefully I can get this thing out of the door quickly, because I don't want to hold on to it too long, otherwise I might want to keep it. And on that note, I'm going to end today's video here, and I just want to say thank you all so much for watching. And if you did enjoy today's video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. And if you're new to my channel, be sure to subscribe so that way you don't miss any more car content like this and car reviews. Now, make sure you also have the notification bell turned on so that way you don't miss the next episode of this Veloster Flip. And until next time, take care. Bye now. Oh, that turbo feels nice.